In the pouring rain, a young woman lies motionless. Her journey ended far too soon. A dark confession echoes, admitting responsibility for the tragic outcome. A rugged man discovers her, his world instantly shattering with grief. His tears reveal a horrifying truth. He has lived through this loss 99 times. He grieves alone in the storm, a solitary figure in a vast, unforgiving wilderness. Standing with grim purpose, he accepts that only one final chance remains. A glowing number 1 serves as a stark reminder of this last desperate attempt. He makes a silent vow to someone named Dami, promising this time will be different. His eyes burn with fierce resolve, swearing he will not fail again. A tender thought reveals the deep paternal love fueling his impossible mission. He jolts awake, the nightmare of his past lives still fresh in his mind. He stares at the TV as a frantic news report announces the start of the apocalypse. The cause of the chaos is revealed, a full-blown zombie outbreak. Society collapsed in a heartbeat, plunging the world into ruin. He looks up to see the very person he's trying to save, Dami, standing before him. Seeing her alive, he recalls their shared tragic past and their simple goal, to survive. A painful memory surfaces of him cradling her broken body amidst the ruins. He remembers the overwhelming despair of a world too cruel for them to endure. Crushed by loss, he recalls making the final, desperate choice to follow her into the darkness. Yet, at the very moment of his end, an unseen force intervened, snapping the thread of fate. He remembers the moment of his last death, confronted by a radiant celestial being. With a cryptic smile, she was the one who offered him this one final chance. The memory of waking up in a cold sweat is still vivid in his mind. He had found himself back in his bed, alive, with a strange number glowing above his head. He shot up in disbelief, struggling to comprehend how he could be unharmed. His attention was drawn to his reflection, where he noticed something on his forehead. The mirror confirmed the impossible. A glowing number 99 was branded on his skin. Realization dawned, and he clenched his fist with a surge of adrenaline. He immediately rushed to Dami's room, pounding on her door with desperate urgency. A bewildered Dami answered, startled by his frantic behavior in the middle of the night. He frantically checks if Dami is all right, his relief palpable. He firmly grabs her arm, urgency in his grip. He pulls her along, demanding she follow without question. Dami resists, clearly annoyed by his forceful actions. He warns her of the imminent danger, his expression grim. A grotesque figure lunges at them, confirming his fears. He jolts awake, screaming in terror back in his room. His eyes are wide with fear and disbelief. He realizes he's reliving the cycle once more. He notices the countdown has begun, the number now 98. He stares in dawning horror, a terrible understanding clicking into place. He finally grasps the truth. The number on his forehead is a countdown of his remaining lives. His hand tightens, realizing each number represents another chance to succeed. The purpose of these chances becomes crystal clear. He has 98 attempts left to save Dami. He recalls a montage of brutal encounters, fighting his way through the undead hordes. He remembers one life where he fought desperately, his only goal to protect her. In another timeline, he abandoned all morality, hiding and surviving by any means necessary. He reflects on the countless choices he made, all driven by his singular focus on her safety. Yet, despite his efforts, he remembers the recurring nightmare of her being overwhelmed. And in every timeline, he ultimately met the same grim fate, unable to stop the inevitable. He remembers gripping his weapon, his resolve hardening with each life he lived. Through the endless cycle of combat, a crucial realization finally began to dawn on him. He recalls a life where he fought with pure, unthinking rage, a blur of desperate action. In another attempt, he learned to fight with whatever was at hand, becoming a resourceful brawler. He remembers his 13th life, a seasoned veteran cutting through the horde with practiced ease. In that timeline, he was a master of survival, navigating the ruined city like a predator. His every swing was a testament to the brutal experience he had accumulated over dozens of lifetimes. Yet even after clearing an entire street, he stood alone amidst the grim aftermath, no closer to his goal. The thought echoed through his mind, a truth forged in countless failures. He understood that no matter how many chances he was given, simply fighting harder was never the answer. He recalls his 13th life, a timeline where he watched Dami succumb to the infection. She had stumbled after him, her last coherent words a desperate plea for help. Her final moments were a scream of pure, unadulterated terror as the change took her. All he could do was hold her, a father's embrace against an unstoppable horror. His greatest failure was being forced to witness his own daughter's agonizing end. With nothing left to live for, he made the choice to follow her into the darkness. A single, decisive action brought that tragic timeline to a close. Even now, the memory of that loss brings a fresh wave of sorrow. His eyes snap open, the pain of that life as real as the tear on his cheek. He lies awake in bed, once again haunted by the ghosts of his past failures. He sits up in bed, the crushing weight of his 13th death still fresh in his mind. The noise from his room awakens Dami, who stirs with a look of sleepy confusion. She walks out to the hallway, annoyed and questioning the late-night commotion. Her eyes fall upon her father, already dressed and holding a weapon with grim intent. Dami's expression shifts from annoyance to bewildered concern at the strange sight. She calls out to him, her voice filled with worry as she sees his haunted, frantic eyes. His hand reaches for her, trembling with an intensity she can't comprehend. He suddenly pulls her into a tight, desperate hug, catching her completely by surprise. Overcome with emotion, he holds her close, a silent mix of relief and sorrow. With unbreakable resolve, he makes a silent promise that this time he will not fail. He vows that no matter how many times he fails, he will always return to save her. His promise is whispered with the grim certainty of a man who has seen the end. He pulls back, his intense gaze pleading for her to trust him completely. Dami looks up, her expression a mix of confusion and concern at her father's strange behavior. His mind flashes back to his very first life, where he finally reached the city of Dijon. He remembers discovering a perfect shelter after 99 grueling failures. The haven was protected by a joint military force, a bastion against the apocalypse. Inside, dedicated medical teams worked tirelessly to care for the survivors. It was a place where society had miraculously endured, a true sanctuary from the chaos. He recalls living out his days there, growing old in a world where he had survived, but she had not. He remembers spending 40 long years in that sanctuary, all of them without her. In that life, he had to be meticulous, knowing it was his only chance to confirm the safe zone's existence. He recalls placing a bouquet on her grave, a bittersweet confirmation of his mission. The memory of his aged face shows the grim certainty that Dijon was their only hope for a final stop. With his purpose fulfilled, he made the choice to reset the timeline, armed with the knowledge of their destination. Back in the present, he processes the weight of that lonely life, his plan now set in stone. He exhales, standing beside Dami, both of them now ready to begin their perilous journey. He gives her a sharp, determined glance, a silent promise to lead the way. Dami looks back, her nervous expression showing she understands the gravity of the situation. But his mind is haunted by another failure, a timeline where she fell just short of reaching their final shelter. He reflects on another tragic loss, blaming himself for Dami's fate. He dedicated 40 years and countless attempts to perfect his plan. With weathered hands, he opens the door, ready to face the apocalypse again. Determined, he vows to avoid repeating past mistakes in this new attempt. He steps out, surprising Dami with his unexpected appearance. A horde of grotesque figures blocks their path, confirming his worst fears. He recognizes a crucial element he hadn't considered, an unforeseen variable. This unexpected element was never present in his previous 40 years and countless simulations. Overwhelmed by the unforeseen event, he freezes in fear and disbelief. He realizes this specific scenario never occurred in his 99 previous attempts. The memory of being swarmed by the undead flashes through his mind. Their grotesque faces were the last thing he saw in that timeline. He had accepted the presence of zombies as a given, never questioning it. A stunning realization hits him as he stares at the approaching monsters. He understands the one constant across all his lives. The area right outside his door was always supposed to be empty. His daughter's frantic cry shatters his moment of realization. With a desperate roar, he thrusts Dami aside, shielding her from the attack. He flees down the hall, creating a diversion to save Dami, who has fallen to the ground. Peeking from cover, his face is a mask of fear as the undead swarm past. Meanwhile, Dami cowers in fear, separated from her father and surrounded by danger. From her hiding spot, Dami watches the unfolding horror, her eye wide with terror. She stumbles backward, letting out a cry of pure, unadulterated panic. Looking up, she sees her father on the other side of a door, confused by his desperate sacrifice. She pounds on the glass, frantically pleading for him to save himself. But on the other side, he's completely swarmed, his body the only thing holding the door shut. He grits his teeth in agony, accepting his fate as the horde closes in. In his final moments, his eyes flash with the cold light of a familiar realization. He reflects on the profound grief of a parent losing their child. It's a gut-wrenching pain he has already endured 99 separate times. As the undead overwhelm him, he understands that he has grown accustomed to this physical end. His mind flashes back to a cherished memory of Dami as a happy, gurgling baby. He remembers the overwhelming joy he felt as a young father looking at his daughter. A simpler time filled with her innocent laughter was all that mattered to him. His final thought is a desperate plea for her not to cry, even as she watches him perish. With grim acceptance, he stares into the void, his sacrifice for her complete. For a moment, he questions if this time his death will be the final one. The horrifying image of Dami being captured is the true source of his terror. The sheer weight of the horde forces him to his knees, his strength finally failing. He is completely buried under the relentless swarm, his end seemingly inevitable. Yet a terrifying smile reveals his new resolve. He'll die 1,000 times if it means saving her. A single thought pierces through his agony. As long as Dami is alive, so is his purpose. He unleashes a defiant roar, refusing to let this death be his final one. An impossible burst of energy erupts from him, sending the undead flying down the corridor. One of the creatures recovers, its glowing red eyes locking onto him with renewed aggression. It lunges with a ferocious roar, its hands outstretched to grab him, but he moves faster, his fist connecting with the creature in a blur of motion. Tapping into his countless lifetimes of combat experience, he carves a path through the swarm. In a display of pure desperation, he bites back, matching the monster's ferocity. His eyes glow with an intense blue light, channeling the power of his resolve. With a final, brutal display of strength, he silences another one of the undead. He moves with brutal efficiency, each strike a testament to his countless battles. Using the undead as stepping stones, he turns the chaos into a deadly ballet. He meets the monstrous horde's ferocity with his own, a one-man army against the apocalypse. But for everyone he fells, more rise to take their place, an endless tide of hunger. He stands as a beacon of defiance, his body radiating an otherworldly power amidst the carnage. With a cold glance back, he acknowledges the unending fight, his resolve now absolute. The horde shrieks in a unified chorus of mindless rage, a wall of death closing in. Yet, even this incredible display of power was not enough to change his fate. In the end, Dami is left alone, huddled against the door her father died to protect. Suddenly, a brilliant light shines from the other side as the lock on the door begins to turn. Dami looks up with tears in her eyes, understanding she's been given another chance. She finds her father standing before her, a transformed and battle-worn protector. He internally accepts his inhuman state, a power given to him for a single purpose. His vow is absolute. He will protect Dami to the very end. A confident smirk shows he has fully embraced his monstrous power. Glowing with an unearthly aura, his first thought is to check on his daughter. Their journey continues, leading them to the Mapo district in Seoul. They find a fortified supermarket, a potential sanctuary called A-Mart. A soldier named Lee Sung-min reacts with angry confusion to their arrival. Carrying Dami, the father stands before the armed squad, who question his identity. The soldier demands to know how they navigated the zombie-infested streets without a scratch. He threatens the father, his patience wearing thin as he demands an immediate explanation. The father ignores the threat, instead asking the soldier a strange question about his face. The soldier's anger turns to shock, a dawning realization hitting him. The father stands calmly, his expression hidden behind a pair of sunglasses. The soldier scoffs at his appearance, questioning his choice to wear sunglasses at night. A female soldier, ex-Captain Cha Hye-ri, steps forward and coldly dismisses them. She turns her back on them, declaring there's no room for them in the shelter. She repeats her order with irritation, but the father remains unmoving, staring at her intently. His silent defiance confuses her, and she glances back with a questioning look. He pleads with the soldiers, explaining that his daughter is gravely ill and barely hanging on. In a desperate move, he begs them to take Dami even if they leave him behind. The female captain stares back, her expression seemingly as cold and unyielding as ever. But a flash of raw fury crosses her face, her composure cracking for a moment. The other soldier scoffs, finding the father's emotional plea to their captain utterly foolish. He confidently assumes their leader is far too tough to be swayed by such a display. To his shock, the captain's stoic mask shatters as she breaks down in tears. Wiping her eyes, she gruffly orders her men to let the two survivors inside. She quickly justifies her decision, claiming they simply need more bodies for guard duty. With a final, stern glare, she leads them into the shelter, the other soldier still processing her sudden change of heart. The father stands calmly, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. A knowing smile crosses his lips as he recalls the captain's predictable nature. He remembers her as a retired soldier who established this very shelter in the Mapo district. He knew her one weakness, a cold-blooded leader who was always moved by a parent's sacrifice. Dami suddenly confronts him, her voice filled with angry confusion. She questions his dramatic display, which was a clear deviation from their original plan. The other soldier cuts them off, harshly ordering them to follow him. He shouts at a visibly distressed Dami, who recoils from his aggressive tone. The father immediately steps in, placing a protective arm around his daughter. He realizes with growing alarm that Dami's mental state is deteriorating rapidly, and she desperately needs to rest. He realizes two new variables are at play: Dami's trauma and his own transformation. The first variable is himself. Bitten by a zombie, he not only survived but gained incredible power. His body has changed so much that he questions if he's even human anymore. The terrifying thought crosses his mind. He might have become a zombie himself. He recalls his original plan, reaching the A-Mart in Hapjeong, the best early-stage shelter. It was the perfect location, stocked with supplies and protected by a military force. He believed this was the one place where Dami would finally be safe from harm. But a collapsed building next to the shelter presents a new, unforeseen problem that never happened before. The soldier explains that the situation changed drastically just 3 days prior. The shelter was overrun when the undead horde finally broke through their defenses. The soldier recalls Captain Cha's last stand, a one-woman army against the undead. He explains she single-handedly lured the entire horde into the adjacent building. She then made a daring escape across a zip line as the undead fell behind her. The building became a tomb, trapping the massive swarm inside its crumbling walls. With the press of a button, she detonated explosives, engulfing the horde in a fiery blast. The soldier confidently states that any survivors are now trapped and slowly rotting away. But as he finishes his story, a sudden noise makes him jump in surprise. The father's expression remains grim, his eyes glowing with an ominous light. The soldier scoffs at his serious face, completely oblivious to the real danger. He mockingly dismisses the idea of an escapee, just as a monstrous figure rises from the rubble behind him. The soldier's confidence shatters as a monstrous, hulking zombie towers over him. Its glowing red eyes and grotesque features reveal a level of malice he's never seen. He turns back, his face a mask of pure terror, realizing his fatal miscalculation. The colossal creature raises its fist, preparing to unleash a devastating blow. It lunges forward with terrifying speed, its red eyes locked on its prey. The ground erupts as its powerful fist smashes down, demonstrating its incredible strength. Captain Cha reacts instantly, sprinting into action to face the new threat. But the monster is faster, its massive fist hurtling directly toward her. The captain is violently thrown aside by the sheer force of the monster's attack. The other soldiers can only watch in horror, screaming as their leader is taken down. Captain Cha drops to a knee, taking aim as the father pulls Dami to safety. With a furious shout, she commands her soldiers to unleash everything they have. The remaining soldiers instantly obey, unleashing a storm of bullets at the new threat. Their assault proves useless as the bullets bounce harmlessly off the monster's hardened skin. The creature lets out an enraged roar, completely unfazed by their attack. It lunges forward, its massive form ready to crush the soldiers standing in its way. A single devastating swipe of its arm sends the soldiers scattering in a brutal display. A lone soldier sits on the ground, staring in disbelief at the carnage around him. The hulking monster towers over the terrified man, ready to deliver a final crushing blow. Suddenly, a powerful fist connects with the monster's jaw, stopping its attack cold. The father's blow sends the hulking creature reeling backward, demonstrating his incredible power. Captain Cha furiously shakes her panicked soldier, trying to snap him out of his terror. She steels her nerves, realizing this new enemy is far more dangerous than anything she's faced before. Her mind races with the terrifying truth that this is no ordinary undead creature. Spotting their only chance, she glances toward the safety of the nearby A-Mart. She screams for everyone to retreat, pulling Dami along as they make a desperate dash for the shelter. The father tries to intervene, but she silences him, insisting that their only option is to flee. As Dami runs in fear, her father looks back with a determined expression, a different plan forming in his mind. His face hardens with resolve, his glowing eyes hidden behind his sunglasses. He suddenly slides to a stop, turning to face the monstrous threat alone. He unleashes a devastating downward strike, his body crackling with raw power. Captain Cha points to a nearby barricade, formulating a new plan on the fly. Her strategy is to lure the monster into the trap, buying them time to find its weakness. But she freezes mid-stride, her plan instantly derailed by an unforeseen horror. She stares in disbelief at the shelter's entrance, where civilians are still trapped on the first floor. The faces of terrified families press against the glass, a clear sign the evacuation failed. With no time to hesitate, she plants her foot, committing to a new, desperate course of action. She orders her remaining men to save the civilians while she draws the monster's attention. The captain and Dami share a tense moment under the moonlight, the weight of the situation hanging between them. Suddenly, the captain realizes the father is missing and frantically asks Dami where he went. The captain's face twists in fury, unable to believe he would abandon his own daughter. Dami points accusingly, her voice filled with betrayal as the captain looks on. The captain turns away, her expression hardening as she seemingly accepts the father's cowardice. Her eyes suddenly widen in shock as she spots an unbelievable sight in the distance. The father clasps his hands, gathering an immense amount of crackling blue energy. He unleashes a devastating downward smash, slamming into the hulking monster with incredible force. A flurry of brutal, high-speed strikes overwhelms the creature in a visceral display of power. He stands over the defeated monster, holding aloft a grim trophy from his victory. The soldiers and civilians can only stare in stunned silence, their minds struggling to process the scene. A father in the crowd instinctively shields his young daughter's eyes from the brutal aftermath. The monster's hand lies severed on the ground, a grim trophy of the battle. He steps forward, his boot landing near the grotesque remains of his foe. Leaning over, he catches his breath, the intense fight having taken its toll. Captain Cha approaches cautiously, her weapon still raised as she assesses the unbelievable scene. She offers a stunned apology, her tough exterior cracking in the face of his sacrifice. The captain admits to Dami that she failed to keep her promise to protect her. He looks up with a knowing smirk, explaining he was just afraid she would get hurt. In response, the captain cocks her rifle, aiming it directly at the man who just saved them. She demands to know what he is, her fear and confusion overriding her gratitude. Unfazed, the father calmly examines his own hand, contemplating the monster he has become. He calmly introduces himself by his real name, Ryu Min-seok. Dami desperately tries to stop him, wanting him to remain anonymous as her father. She pleads with him, warning that revealing the truth about himself will only put him in danger. He ignores her, coolly declaring himself a zombie expert to the stunned soldiers. The tense standoff continues, with the captain's weapon still trained on the man who just saved them. His bizarre claim leaves both the captain and Dami utterly baffled and speechless. He explains that he's been analyzing the undead's behavior and weaknesses just to survive. With a disarming smile, he expresses hope that they can all work together from now on. The captain's expression softens into a smile, a look of understanding dawning on her face. But her friendly demeanor vanishes as she suddenly grabs him by the collar, her eyes blazing with fury. The captain furiously demands an explanation, ordering him to stop his bizarre act. She points to the fallen beast, questioning how he could defeat it with his bare hands. She highlights the fact that his glowing red eyes are identical to those of the undead. Leaning in close, she demands to know the truth, whether he is actually human. He calmly turns the tables, holding a knife to her neck as he begins his explanation. He claims the creature was already weakened by their gunfire, and he merely delivered the final blow. He expertly identifies the monster as an eater, a fused zombie with specialized defenses. With a confident smirk, he reveals that despite its strength, the creature had a single weak spot: its jaw. He casually adds that while his story is true, it would take the force of a sledgehammer to exploit that weakness. When questioned about his eyes, he offers a deadpan excuse about a congenital lack of melanin. He explains that he covers his eyes precisely because his intense gaze makes people uncomfortable. He calmly asks if, after everything she has witnessed, he still truly looks like a monster to her. The captain lowers her fist, but her expression remains a mask of unconvinced fury. Her mind races with suspicion, certain that there is more to his story than he is revealing. Dami suddenly intervenes, arguing that no zombie would ever risk its life to protect its own daughter. The captain takes a step back, her resolve wavering as she considers Dami's desperate defense. After a tense moment of consideration, she finally gives them her reluctant permission. She turns away, gruffly ordering them to follow her inside the fortified shelter. With a final warning glance, she informs the so-called expert that he will be under her constant surveillance. Her expression hardens, showing she fully intends to scrutinize his every move from now on. The aftermath of a brutal encounter leaves soldiers scattered and incapacitated. Captain Cha checks on her men, concerned about their well-being after the attack. A swift, decisive kick suggests a forceful action against an unseen target. Captain Cha gives urgent orders, directing survivors to a safer location. A soldier questions the captain's delayed response to the escalating danger. Captain Cha explains the reason for their initial panic and inaction. She issues a chilling warning, her focus shifting from the undead to a new target. The soldiers acknowledge her command, ready to follow her lead. A soldier directs a harsh command, his expression suggesting intense emotions. Inside the supermarket shelter, survivors find a moment of uneasy respite. Dami quietly reminds her father to keep his abilities a secret from the other survivors. She internally frets over his shameless lies, while he reflects that the captain is too sharp to be easily deceived. She suddenly asks if he knows the captain, catching him off guard with her question. He denies it, but his mind flashes with memories of their many encounters across countless failed timelines. She questions where he learned certain slang, and he cheekily claims she taught him, much to her confusion. He gives her a knowing smirk, insisting that she was indeed his teacher. A memory surfaces of a past life, where he learned a great deal from her over their long journey together. Back in the present, he tells her to wait as he goes to find them some food. She watches him leave, her expression a mix of suspicion and bewilderment at his confident demeanor. He glances back with a confident smirk, his glowing eyes hinting at the vast experience she can't yet comprehend. A memory surfaces of Dami making a desperate plea to her father. He recalls her giving him a pair of sunglasses, a gift with a hidden purpose. In a past timeline, she begged him to promise he'd never reveal how much he had changed. She worried that if others discovered his secret, they would see him as a threat. Her plea was filled with genuine fear for his safety, urging him to agree. Back in the present, he sits at the supply table, acknowledging that her concerns were valid. As he gathers supplies, he realizes the chaos that would erupt if his true nature were exposed. He knows the fragile piece of the shelter would shatter if the survivors learned what he truly is. He returns with a box of food, announcing his arrival to an empty space. Looking down, he finds Dami has fallen asleep on the floor, completely exhausted from their ordeal. He gently covers his sleeping daughter with a blanket, a rare moment of peace. But his mind is troubled, questioning the recent turn of events. He realizes the undead are appearing and evolving at an alarming rate. 100 zombies at their door and a mutant appearing within a week is an unprecedented escalation. This accelerated pace is a new variable he never encountered in his previous 99 lives. He desperately tries to understand the reason behind this sudden and dangerous change. A chilling suspicion begins to form in his mind. He comes to a terrifying conclusion. He himself is the cause of the change. His presence, his very existence as a new variable, is altering the timeline. This realization casts a dark shadow over their future and the fate of the world. A grotesque figure emerges from the darkness, its presence unsettling. Under the moonlight, a monstrous being senses a pursuit. A horde of undead creatures advances with menacing intent. The reason for the horde's aggression remains unclear. A monstrous figure lunges from the shadows, its form distorted and threatening. The father recognizes himself as a disruptive force in this world. He addresses the horde, his words carrying an unnerving confidence. A large, glowing object impacts the ground with force. A muscular figure appears, his words suggesting a completed task. The horde reacts to the figure's presence with urgency. He prepares for his morning task, wielding 2 ladders with grim determination. His goal is simple: finish this fight before his daughter wakes up. He stands alone, a single man against an overwhelming sea of the undead. With blinding speed, he lands the first devastating blow on an unsuspecting creature. A powerful shockwave from his attack sends a wave of zombies flying backward. He wields the ladders like weapons, cutting through the horde with brutal efficiency. Surrounded on all sides, he battles with a ferocity born from countless lifetimes of combat. He brings a ladder down with crushing force, clearing a space in the chaotic melee. The defeated creatures dissolve into particles of blue light, their forms disintegrating. His eyes glow with red-hot intensity, his resolve hardening with every foe he defeats. He carves through the undead with a sweeping strike, turning the ladder into a deadly weapon. A new type of creature, a grotesque fusion of woman and centipede, leaps down to attack. Their glowing red eyes fixate on him, their monstrous forms descending with lethal intent. A burst of purple energy erupts, consuming the new wave of attackers in a chaotic blast. He leaps high into the air, repositioning himself above the fray for his next devastating assault. Landing with the force of a meteor, he unleashes a shockwave that obliterates the surrounding horde. With the lesser threats cleared, he draws a battle axe, preparing for a more serious fight. The remnants of the horde disintegrate into blue light, unable to withstand his overwhelming power. He launches himself into a gravity-defying kick, aiming to shatter a hulking monster from above. But as he clears the field, an even more terrifying, multi-limbed creature emerges from the chaos. He dodges a brutal attack, his body a blur of motion as he prepares a counterstrike. The monstrous creature shrieks in fury, its grotesque face contorted with rage. With his axe held high, he swings upward, aiming for a decisive blow against the towering beast. His face is a mask of cold fury, his glowing red eye locked on his target with deadly intent. By morning, the sun rises over a deceptively peaceful Amart, the chaos of the night gone without a trace. Inside, Dami remains sound asleep, completely unaware of the battle her father fought to protect her. She slowly begins to wake, her eyes fluttering open after a long and much-needed rest. Sitting up, she stretches her arms, shaking off the last remnants of sleep. Now fully awake, she looks around the shelter, her expression questioning as she searches for her father. He appears before her with a warm smile and a plate of food, acting as if nothing out of the ordinary happened. He presents her with a carefully prepared meal, complete with a heart-shaped design on the rice. He asks if she's hungry, his confident smile doing little to hide his inhumanly red eyes. Dami looks up from her meal, still processing her father's strangely cheerful demeanor. A small, grateful smile appears on her face, a moment of normalcy in their chaotic world. The morning sun shines brightly on the Amart, a stark contrast to the previous night's horrors. Meanwhile, in her office, Captain Cha furiously questions one of her soldiers. The soldier insists he's telling the truth, recounting the strange noises he heard throughout the night. He reports that the morning scouting party discovered a field of vanquished undead just outside the shelter. The captain slams her desk in disbelief, finding his story completely illogical. Though he admits it sounds impossible, the soldier swears he witnessed the unbelievable scene with his own eyes. Captain Cha slams her hands on the desk, demanding to know what really happened to the horde overnight. Her mind flashes back to a crucial detail, a sudden realization dawning in her eyes. The implications of the soldier's story begin to sink in, forming a terrifying conclusion. She turns to her subordinate with newfound resolve, giving a swift and unexpected order. With grim determination, she announces that the Amart evacuation plan is now in effect. Outside, a survivor stares in disbelief, confirming that the impossible has actually happened. The streets are eerily quiet under the morning sun, with no sign of the undead anywhere. The shelter's residents buzz with excitement, realizing the constant groans of the horde have vanished. A wave of joyous relief washes over the crowd as they celebrate their apparent freedom. Amidst the cheering, Dami turns to her father, sharing the hopeful news that the threat seems to be gone. He gently places a hard hat on Dami's head, his expression serious. With an intense gaze, he gives her a cryptic warning to keep the helmet on no matter what. Dami adjusts the helmet, confused by his words, as Captain Cha and her soldiers approach the main hall. Captain Cha raises a megaphone, preparing to make an announcement to the gathered survivors. She confirms to the crowd that for reasons unknown, all zombies in the immediate area have been eradicated. The survivors erupt in joyous celebration, believing they are finally safe. But the captain's next words cut through the cheer, announcing they will be evacuating the shelter. The crowd's celebration turns to confusion, questioning the need to leave now that the danger is gone. The captain begins her explanation, revealing they were in contact with the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade. She describes a heavily armed military unit in the Gyeonggi region that is still operational and accepting civilians. The survivors erupt in anger, questioning the order to leave based on a single unverified radio message. Captain Cha confidently reassures them, stating she knows the sender of the message personally. She recalls the sender, a legendary soldier known as Blue Hawk, whose word is considered unbreakable. Her explanation fails to quell the dissent, as the crowd accuses her of leading them to their doom over an old message. The argument descends into chaos, with survivors shouting over the captain's orders, torn between staying and fleeing. A man in a blue cap smugly remarks that he knew this kind of disorganization was inevitable. He then makes a pointed remark, questioning if a male leader would have made such a reckless decision. The captain's face contorts with rage, utterly incensed by his insubordinate and sexist comment. Just as the tension reaches its peak, a single foot steps forward, cutting through the standoff. The father emerges from the crowd, his presence commanding attention as he declares that the zombies will indeed return. The man in the blue cap angrily confronts the father, mocking his claim of being an expert. He falters for a moment, unnerved by the father's unwavering and intense gaze. The father calmly explains that staying in the shelter is simply a death sentence. He paints a grim picture of a man being cornered by a monster, questioning if that's true survival. He clarifies that hiding is not survival, but simply waiting for the inevitable end. The man stumbles back in confusion, while Dami questions her father's aggressive approach. The father admits that following the soldiers isn't a guarantee, causing the crowd to doubt him. He then turns the question back on the crowd, challenging their decision to stay behind. With a chilling look, he asks if any of them truly believe they can survive without the soldiers' help. His powerful question silences the entire hall, forcing everyone to confront the harsh reality of their situation. The man in the Lacoste tracksuit agrees, realizing the dire situation. Another survivor emphasizes their reliance on the military for survival. The survivors rally behind the soldiers, ready to follow their lead. Captain Cha processes the sudden shift in the crowd's opinion. She stares intently, trying to understand the father's influence. The blonde soldier questions the father's true nature. The father deflects gratitude, hinting at a hidden agenda. A flashback reveals the father's past experience with persuasion. Back in the present, the father extends a hand to the captain. His outstretched hand seems to shimmer with an unnatural glow. He offers his hand with a confident smile, expressing his unwavering faith in her leadership. His words catch her off guard, her expression shifting as she processes his faith in her. The father now stands with the military unit, a civilian expert joining their ranks. With the debate settled, the official escape mission is finally set in motion. Captain Cha roars into the megaphone, making a personal vow to ensure everyone's survival. The evacuation begins as a convoy of buses and trucks prepares to leave the city. The convoy makes its way across a bridge, a vulnerable procession against the vast cityscape. Aboard the bus, Dami sits anxiously among the other survivors, her hard hat a stark reminder of the danger. The soldiers on board remain on high alert, their nervous expressions betraying the constant tension of the journey. Captain Cha takes the lead in a truck, her determined gaze fixed on the road ahead as she guides the convoy. The convoy passes a rusted sign for Yeouido, marking their progress through the desolate city. One soldier gets nostalgic about crossing the Han River, but Captain Cha quickly shuts him down, demanding focus. The captain's gaze remains fixed on the road, knowing this is only the beginning of their ordeal. Her urgent shout snaps through the air, startling the soldiers in the truck as danger appears. A lone zombie stumbles into their path, a grim herald of what's to come. The single creature is quickly joined by a swarm, their forms a blur of motion as they charge the convoy. The horde's glowing red eyes fixate on their prey, their collective shriek promising a brutal confrontation. Springing into action, Captain Cha barks out tactical orders, splitting the convoy to flank the approaching horde. An overhead view reveals the terrifying scale of the ambush, with a sea of undead flooding the street. A key weakness is revealed, noting the undead are far more sensitive to sound than to sight. The soldiers create a diversion, tossing a box of cans onto the street to exploit the undead's weakness. The clattering noise instantly draws the attention of the ravenous horde, their red eyes locking onto the sound. Captain Cha confirms their plan is working as the entire swarm changes direction to follow their truck. She orders her nervous driver to maintain their speed, staying just out of the horde's desperate reach. But the sheer number of pursuers is overwhelming, threatening to overtake them at any moment. With a determined shout, the captain redirects them toward the nearby Seongsan Bridge. Their destination is revealed, a collapsed bridge, a perfect death trap for the mindless creatures. A second zombie trait is highlighted, their relentless, single-minded pursuit of any human target. Knowing they will follow blindly, the captain waits for the perfect moment to spring her trap. At her signal, the truck surges forward, leading the massive horde onto the broken section of the bridge. The truck successfully lures the massive horde onto the broken bridge, leading them to their doom. Driven by instinct, a single-minded zombie sprints forward, oblivious to the trap ahead. The undead swarm the truck, a chaotic wave of bodies desperate to reach their prey. With brutal force, the truck plows through the horde, clearing a path through the chaos. The plan works perfectly as the mindless creatures follow the truck right off the edge of the collapsed bridge. The remaining zombies on the bridge halt, confused by the sudden disappearance of their target. A third critical zombie trait is about to be revealed, a key to their next move. The creatures are completely focused on what's in front of them, leaving them vulnerable from behind. The father's knowledge reveals their final weakness. The zombies have a critical blind spot. The civilian bus slams into the distracted horde from behind, exploiting their weakness with devastating effect. A soldier roars with fierce determination as their brutal final tactic is unleashed. A massive road roller, commandeered by the father, plows through the horde with unstoppable force. The heavy machinery leaves a trail of utter devastation, crushing the undead beneath its immense weight. The remaining creatures shriek in rage and pain, caught completely off guard by the new assault. The road roller continues its relentless charge, clearing a path through the panicked swarm. A hulking mutant and the surviving zombies turn their collective fury towards the source of their destruction. From their truck, Captain Cha and her soldiers can only listen in horror to the sounds of the massacre. The machine's sheer force sends the undead flying, scattering them like bowling pins. The father stares ahead with cold resolve, his glowing red eyes reflecting the brutal efficiency of his work. With the horde annihilated, the convoy comes to a stop on the now silent bridge. Back on the bus, Dami and the other survivors sit in tense silence, the journey far from over. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she processes the unbelievable plan unfolding outside. She confronts her father, questioning why he must always be the one to step into danger. Dami worries aloud that his actions will expose his secret to the ever-watchful soldiers. Her attention is drawn away as Captain Cha's team returns, their expressions grim. He reassures her with a confident smile, claiming he's only there to play a support role. From the driver's seat of the road roller, he gives a final wave, promising to keep his true power hidden. Dami can only watch in stunned silence as the makeshift war machine, now carrying the soldiers, rolls away. Captain Cha leaps into action, ordering her troops to fall back and regroup for the next phase. The remaining monsters, enraged by the assault, charge forward for a final desperate confrontation. The road roller continues its brutal work, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. With a final decisive push, the makeshift war machine breaks through the last of the horde. The convoy proceeds down the now cleared road, leaving the remnants of the battle far behind. Aboard the road roller, a soldier looks toward Captain Cha, a sense of relief and awe on his face. Against all odds, the convoy successfully reaches the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade's base. The father recognizes this place as a key stronghold, a bastion of survival from a past timeline. He reflects on their arrival, realizing they've reached the safe zone in record time thanks to his intervention. But he knows he can't afford to be careless, understanding that his increased power brings new risks. A haunting vision of Dami in peril reminds him of the true stakes of his mission. He resolves to stick to the proven path from his past lives, refusing to deviate from the plan that ensures her safety. He knows that despite their victory, the real battle for survival has only just begun. A soldier enthusiastically praises the father's unbelievable skills with the heavy machinery. Captain Cha grudgingly admits that while she had her doubts, he ultimately saved everyone. He deflects questions about his skills, coolly stating that knowledge is the key to survival. The captain stops him, demanding he clarify his cryptic statement about their safe arrival. He plays coy, prompting her to press him for the true meaning behind his words. Their tense exchange is suddenly cut short by the arrival of the base's soldiers. A sergeant formally welcomes Captain Cha, revealing they had been expecting her convoy. She's taken aback as the sergeant explains that a certain Colonel Cha had vouched for her skills and predicted her arrival. The captain freezes in shock, realizing the mysterious Blue Hawk is none other than her own father. The sergeant adds that her father predicted a hard-headed soldier would arrive, leaving the captain utterly flustered. She quickly changes the subject, demanding to know her father's current location. He explains that the colonel headed for the back gate, just as the survivors are being loaded onto buses. The sergeant then casually mentions that a new wave of undead has just appeared there. A jolt of fear runs through the captain as she processes the sudden and immediate danger. She frantically asks if her father led a unit to confront the new threat. The sergeant denies this, correcting her assumption that the colonel would need backup. With a nervous but confident expression, he prepares to reveal the legendary soldier's true methods. A menacing shadow falls over the scene, hinting at an overwhelming and solitary presence. He clarifies that the legendary Colonel Cha doesn't need a unit. He handles such threats entirely on his own. The sergeant reveals the colonel's previous record for clearing a horde was 35 minutes. At the brigade's rear gate, soldiers look down from a watchtower as the sun sets. A soldier checks his watch, astonished to see a new record has been set at only 27 seconds. A soldier from the watchtower shouts down, congratulating the colonel on his new, unbelievable record. The colonel's philosophy is revealed. A simple axe is far more effective than any firearm. The brutal aftermath of his work is shown, a testament to the sheer force of his acts. A close-up reveals his savage grin, basking in the glow of his victory. He looks back with a chilling smirk, making a cryptic and unsettling remark about his foes. He stands victorious over the aftermath, holding a grim trophy as his identity is confirmed. Colonel Cha Pung-ho, the legendary Blue Hawk. He scoffs at the soldier's warning, finding the idea that these creatures could ever harm him completely absurd. The colonel explains that his vast experience allows him to instantly assess any situation. He claims he can gauge a foe's combat strength with a single glance. He scoffs at the creature's pathetic strength, as his soldiers reluctantly agree with his harsh assessment. He casually stretches, complaining about his age despite the carnage surrounding him. He impatiently scans the area for a worthy opponent, unaware his daughter is listening. Suddenly, a hulking creature he thought was finished begins to stir behind him. He turns in surprise, questioning how the monster could have survived his assault. The enraged creature lunges forward, its eyes blazing with renewed fury. Before it can strike, a vehicle slams into the monster with incredible speed and force. The watching soldiers can only stare in utter shock, unable to comprehend the sudden intervention. The father steps out from the heavy machinery, confronting the legendary Colonel Cha. The colonel's experienced eyes immediately size up the newcomer, judging his capabilities. At the same time, the father's own senses perceive the colonel's overwhelming and monstrous power. He calmly introduces himself as Ryu Min-seok, offering his assistance to the bewildered soldiers. Enraged by the civilians' interference, the colonel raises his axe for a swift and decisive strike. But the father effortlessly sidesteps the powerful downward swing, moving with impossible speed. The onlooking soldiers cry out in panic, horrified that their commander is attacking a civilian. One soldier can only stare in stunned silence, his mind failing to process the unbelievable event. In a stunning display, the father catches the descending axe blade with his bare hand. The colonel is left utterly frozen, unable to believe his attack was stopped by an unarmed man. The colonel frantically orders his men to raise the security alert, recognizing an unprecedented threat. His glowing red eye confirms the colonel's worst fear. This man is not human. The father calmly acknowledges that the colonel's experienced eyes see the truth. He's left speechless as the stranger addresses him by his full name, Cha Pung-ho. With a single flex of his hand, he shatters the colonel's axe into pieces. He declares his intention to stay, which means he must now persuade the legendary soldier. He realizes that mere words will no longer be enough to win this argument. Instead, he decides to speak the only language the hardened colonel truly understands. A predatory grin spreads across the colonel's face, accepting the unspoken challenge. The father clenches his fist, ready to settle their disagreement with overwhelming force. He prepares to give the colonel a full demonstration of his true, terrifying identity.